fake cops with guns surrounded Tom's ranch, demanding his arrest for HOA violations. What they didn't know. Tom Harrison was a retired attorney general who'd sent hundreds of criminals to prison. Their fake badges were about to become real felony charges, and Tom held all the evidence. Before watching full story, comment below from where you watching. Also like and subscribe for more stories. Tom Harrison had earned his peace. After 32 years as a prosecutor and 8 years as Attorney General of Texas, he traded his courtroom battles for the simple life on his 500-acre ranch outside Austin. At 63, he preferred fixing fences to fighting legal battles. The Sunset Ridge community had seemed perfect when he moved there 5 years ago. Rolling hills, horse trails, and neighbors who respected privacy. The HOA seemed reasonable, just basic rules about maintaining property values. How wrong he'd been. Tom was feeding his horses on a crisp October morning when he first noticed the black SUVs parked at his gate. 3 vehicles, tinted windows, official looking but somehow wrong. His prosecutor instincts, dormant but never dead, stirred to life. "Can I help you, gentlemen?" he called out, walking toward the gate with his coffee mug still in hand. The lead man stepped out, tall, muscular, wearing a tactical vest with "Police" printed across the chest. But Tom's trained eye caught the details others would miss. The vest was too new, the badge poorly made, the stance all wrong. "Thomas Harrison, you're under arrest for violation of community ordinances and obstruction of HOA enforcement," the fake officer announced, reaching for handcuffs. Tom almost laughed. Almost. But the sight of the weapons on their belts killed his amusement. These weren't just pranksters, they were dangerous. "What agency are you with?" Tom asked calmly, his prosecutor voice coming back like riding a bicycle. "Sunset Ridge Community Police Department," the leader replied with too much confidence. That's when Tom knew they'd made their fatal mistake. There was no such department. He checked all local law enforcement when he moved here, old habits from his days investigating corruption. Tom's hands stayed visible and relaxed as his mind raced. 32 years of dealing with criminals had taught him to stay calm when threatened. These men expected fear, panic, compliance. Instead, they were facing someone who'd sent hundreds of their kind to prison. "I'd like to see your identification and warrant," Tom said politely. The fake cop's partner, a shorter man with nervous eyes, shifted uncomfortably. "Sir, you need to comply immediately or face additional charges." Tom smiled, the same cold smile that had terrified defense attorneys across Texas. "Son, I've been dealing with fake badges since before you were born. So I'll ask one more time, what agency issued your authority to make arrests in Travis County?" The leader's confidence cracked slightly. "Look, old man, don't make this harder than it needs to be. The HOA has legal authority." "HOAs don't have arrest powers," Tom interrupted. "And impersonating a police officer is a felony. So is criminal trespass, conspiracy, and about 6 other charges I can think of off the top of my head." The men exchanged glances. Their simple intimidation job was going sideways fast. "Just cooperate and this will be easy," the nervous one said, but his voice shook. Tom pulled out his phone slowly, deliberately. "I'm going to call 911 now. You have exactly 60 seconds to get off my property before the real police arrive." That's when they made their second mistake. The leader drew his weapon. Tom had faced armed criminals before, but never while wearing jeans and cowboy boots on his own ranch. Still, his training kicked in. He assessed distances, cover options, escape routes, all while keeping his voice steady. "Gentlemen, drawing weapons on private property without lawful authority is aggravated assault. You're looking at 25 to life if you don't holster those right now." "Shut up," the leader snapped. "You think you're smart? The HOA knows exactly who you are. Some washed-up lawyer who thinks he can ignore community rules." Tom's eyebrows rose. "Washed-up lawyer? Is that what they told you?" He could see confusion flickering in their eyes. Good. Doubt was a prosecutor's best weapon. "Son, before you make your next move, maybe you should ask your HOA bosses exactly who they sent you to intimidate. Because I'm betting they didn't mention that I spent 8 years as Texas Attorney General." The nervous one's gun hand started shaking. "You're lying." Tom pulled out his wallet slowly, extracting his retired law enforcement ID. "Thomas James Harrison, Attorney General of Texas, 2008 to 2016. I've prosecuted more criminals than you've had hot dinners. And right now you're committing about 12 felonies on my property." The weapons stayed pointed at him, but Tom could see the doubt spreading like cancer through their confidence. "Here's what's going to happen," Tom continued, his voice taking on the authority that had commanded courtrooms for decades. "You're going to lower those weapons, get in your vehicles and drive away. Then you're going to call whoever hired you and tell them they made the biggest mistake of their miserable lives. The fake cops made their third mistake. They ran instead of shooting. Tom watched their SUVs disappear down his driveway, then immediately called his old friend Sheriff Rodriguez. Maria? It's Tom Harrison. I need you to come out to my ranch. And bring some detectives. We've got a conspiracy to investigate. Within an hour, Tom's property was crawling with real law enforcement. He'd worked with most of these officers during his time as AG, and they knew his reputation. When Tom Harrison called about criminal activity, people listened. Sheriff Rodriguez examined the tire tracks, reviewed Tom's security camera footage, and took his statement. Tom, this is bigger than just some HOA power trip. Fake police departments don't happen by accident. I know, Tom replied, already thinking 3 steps ahead. Someone invested serious money in this operation. Vehicles, uniforms, weapons. This was planned. Detective Sarah Chin, one of Tom's former prosecutors, pulled him aside. I ran preliminary checks on the Sunset Ridge HOA. The president is Marcus Webb. He's got connections to some questionable private security firms. Tom's smile was predatory. Marcus Webb. I remember that name from somewhere. It took 2 hours of digging through his old case files, but Tom found it. Marcus Webb, charged with fraud and embezzlement in 2014. The case had been dismissed on a technicality, but Tom remembered Webb's rage during the proceedings. The threats, the promises of revenge. Son of a bitch, Tom muttered. He's been planning this for 9 years. Tom's retirement was officially over. He activated every contact, every favor owed, every connection built over 3 decades in law enforcement. The fake cop incident wasn't random, it was personal revenge wrapped in HOA authority. His first call was to FBI agent Patricia Morrison, who'd worked organized crime cases with Tom for years. Pat, I need a favor. I've got fake police officers operating in Travis County, and it ties to organized fraud. This isn't some neighborhood dispute. This is a criminal enterprise using HOA authority as cover. The FBI took it seriously. Within days, agents were conducting surveillance on the Sunset Ridge HOA headquarters and Marcus Webb's private security company. Meanwhile, Tom reached out to other residents. What he found shocked even his experienced cynicism. The fake arrests weren't new, they'd been happening for months. Elderly residents intimidated into compliance, families threatened with jail time for minor violations, people paying thousands in fines to avoid prosecution. Mrs. Eleanor Vasquez, an 80-year-old widow, broke down crying in Tom's living room. They said I'd go to prison if I didn't pay $15,000 for having the wrong mailbox. I gave them my savings. Tom's jaw tightened. Mrs. Vasquez, those weren't real police officers. You were robbed. One by one, victims came forward. The fake police department had stolen over $200,000 from residents through intimidation and fraud. Webb had created an entire criminal operation hiding behind HOA legitimacy. Tom's plan was elegant in its simplicity. If Webb wanted to play games with fake authority, Tom would show him what real authority looked like. Working with the FBI and Sheriff's Department, Tom orchestrated a sting operation. He would appear to comply with another fake arrest, wearing a wire and leading the criminals directly into a trap. The bait was perfect. Tom sent a letter to the HOA claiming he was installing a new horse barn without proper permits. It was exactly the kind of violation that had triggered fake arrests before. Webb took the bait immediately. Within 48 hours, the same black SUVs appeared at Tom's gate. This time they brought more men, 6 fake officers with body armor and weapons. Tom walked out to meet them, his hands visible but his demeanor completely different. Instead of the confident prosecutor, he played a confused old man. Officers, thank goodness you're here. I think I may have made some mistakes with my property improvements. The leader, a different man this time, relaxed visibly. Mr. Harrison, you're under arrest for multiple violations of community ordinances. You need to come with us for processing. Of course, officer. I don't want any trouble. Tom allowed them to put handcuffs on him, all while the wire in his shirt recorded every word. As they drove Tom toward their fake processing facility, a rented warehouse outside town, the criminals made their biggest mistake yet. They started talking. Webb's going to love this, one said. He's been wanting to get this old bastard for years. What's his problem with Harrison anyway? Another asked. Harrison was the prosecutor who tried to put Webb away back in 2014. Webb's been planning revenge ever since he moved into this neighborhood. Tom smiled in the back seat. They just confessed to conspiracy and revealed the personal motivation. Any defense attorney trying to claim this was legitimate HOA enforcement had just lost their case. The warehouse was impressive. Fake holding cells, bogus processing equipment, even counterfeit legal documents. Webb had invested serious money in creating the illusion of legal authority. Marcus Webb himself was waiting, and Tom barely recognized the man. 9 years of hatred had twisted Webb's features into something ugly and bitter. "Thomas Harrison," Webb said with satisfaction. "Not so tough now, are you?" Tom looked around the fake jail with professional interest. "Impressive setup, Marcus. Must have cost a fortune. Too bad it's all evidence now." Webb's smile faltered. "What?" Tom's demeanor shifted back to the prosecutor who'd terrified criminals across Texas. "Did you really think I'd walk into this blind? Every word you've said is being recorded. Every crime you've committed is being documented. And in about 30 seconds, this place is going to be surrounded by federal agents." Webb's face went white. "You're bluffing." "Marcus Webb, you are under arrest for conspiracy to commit fraud, impersonating police officers, extortion, robbery, and about 20 other felonies. You have the right to remain silent." The warehouse doors exploded open as FBI tactical teams swarmed in. Tom's fake arrest had led them directly to the heart of Webb's criminal operation. The arrests were spectacular. Webb, 6 fake officers and 4 HOA board members who'd participated in the conspiracy. The FBI seized vehicles, weapons, fake uniforms, fraudulent documents, and over $300,000 in stolen money. Tom's wire recordings were devastating. Hours of criminals discussing their fraud, their victims, and their methods. No defense attorney in the world could explain away that evidence. But the case got even bigger when FBI forensic accountants dug into Webb's finances. The fake police operation was just the beginning. Webb had been running similar scams in 3 other states, targeting retirees and vulnerable communities through fraudulent HOA enforcement. Tom testified before the grand jury that indicted Webb and his accomplices on federal racketeering charges. It felt good to be back in a courtroom even briefly. This defendant used the authority and trust associated with homeowner associations to prey on elderly and vulnerable residents, Tom told the grand jurors. He created an elaborate criminal enterprise designed to steal money through intimidation and fear. The indictments were unprecedented. 142 criminal counts across multiple jurisdictions. Webb was looking at life in federal prison. The trial was a prosecutor's dream. Tom's recordings, victim testimony, financial evidence, and documentary proof created an overwhelming case. Webb's attorneys tried everything, claiming the HOA had legitimate authority, arguing their client was just providing security services, even suggesting Tom had entrapped them. Nothing worked. The evidence was too strong, the crimes too clear, the victims too sympathetic. Tom testified for 3 days, methodically walking the jury through each element of the conspiracy. He'd lost none of his courtroom skills. If anything, his years of experience made him more effective than ever. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury," he said during his victim impact statement, "this defendant didn't just steal money. He stole people's sense of security in their own homes. He weaponized authority to terrorize his neighbors. He turned homeownership into a nightmare." The jury convicted Webb on all counts. His sentence was 47 years in federal prison without possibility of parole. But Tom's favorite moment came during sentencing, when Webb's attorney tried one last desperate argument. "Your Honor, my client was simply trying to maintain community standards. He never intended." "Counselor," the judge interrupted, "your client pointed weapons at a former attorney general and attempted to kidnap him using fake police authority. If he'd researched his target better, he might have chosen a different profession." With Webb's criminal enterprise destroyed, Tom turned his attention to reforming the Sunset Ridge HOA. The old board had been disbanded after 4 members were arrested as co-conspirators. Tom ran for HOA president on a simple platform: no more fake cops, no more illegal fines, no more terrorizing residents. He won unanimously. His first act was returning the stolen money to victims. The FBI had seized Webb's assets, including luxury cars, boats, and real estate purchased with fraud proceeds. Every penny went back to the people he'd robbed. Mrs. Vasquez got her $15,000 back, plus interest and damages. She used the money to hire Tom's landscaping company to install the garden she'd always wanted. "Mr. Harrison," she said through tears, "you gave me back more than my money. You gave me back my dignity." Tom's second act was implementing real community improvements. New streetlights, repaired roads, a community center where residents could actually meet and discuss issues. Most importantly, he established clear rules about HOA authority. No fake police, no excessive fines, no intimidation tactics. Just reasonable community standards enforced through proper legal channels. Word of Tom's victory spread quickly through law enforcement and legal circles. A retired attorney general taking down a criminal conspiracy made national news. But the real impact was felt in communities across the country where similar HOA scams were operating. Suddenly, fake police departments found their victims asking uncomfortable questions. People started researching their HOA boards, demanding transparency, refusing to be intimidated. Tom received hundreds of calls from residents facing similar situations. He couldn't take every case, but he provided advice, contacts, and encouragement. The key is documentation, he told a woman in Florida whose HOA was using fake marshals. Record everything, research everything, and never assume they have the authority they claim. His old colleagues in law enforcement also took notice. Task forces were formed to investigate HOA fraud across multiple states. Webb's operation had been much larger than anyone realized. 2 years later, Tom sat on his porch watching his horses graze in the evening light. The Sunset Ridge community was peaceful now, genuinely peaceful, not the fake quiet that came from fear. His phone rang. Sheriff Rodriguez calling with an update on the Webb case. Tom thought you'd want to know. The appeals court upheld Webb's conviction. All 47 years. He's done. Tom smiled. Good. How are the other cases going? 3 more states have filed charges based on our evidence. This thing just keeps growing. You opened up a whole network of fraud. After hanging up, Tom reflected on the strange turn his retirement had taken. He'd wanted peace and quiet, but instead found himself in the middle of the biggest case of his career. His neighbor, Dave Peterson, walked over with a beer. Dave had been one of Webb's victims, threatened with arrest for having grass that was allegedly too long. Tom, I keep meaning to ask you something, Dave said, settling into the other porch chair. What's that? When those fake cops first showed up, weren't you scared at all? I mean, they had guns. Tom considered the question. Dave, I spent 32 years dealing with criminals who thought they were smarter than the law. You learn to spot the amateurs pretty quickly. But what if they'd been real cops? Tom's laugh carried across the ranch. Real cops don't work for HOAs, Dave. Real cops know the law. Real cops don't need to threaten elderly widows to feel powerful. Dave nodded thoughtfully. I guess that's the difference between justice and revenge. Exactly. Webb wanted revenge for something that happened 9 years ago. Justice wanted to protect people from being victimized. Guess which one won? Tom's story became a case study in law schools across the country. Harrison versus Webb was cited in textbooks about consumer fraud, organized crime, and the importance of knowing your constitutional rights. But for Tom, the real victory was simpler. Mrs. Vasquez tended her garden without fear. Dave Peterson's kids played in their yard without worrying about arbitrary rules. The community actually functioned like a community. The fake police cars were gone, replaced by genuine neighborhood watch volunteers who actually cared about safety rather than control. Webb's warehouse was converted into a community center where residents held meetings, played games, and celebrated holidays together. The fake holding cells became storage for holiday decorations. Tom kept his HOA president position for 3 years before stepping down to enjoy true retirement. His successor was Dave Peterson, who ran on a platform of common sense, not common criminals. On quiet evenings, Tom sometimes thought about the moment when Webb's fake cops first approached his gate. They'd expected to find a helpless old man they could intimidate and control. Instead, they'd found someone who knew exactly how to turn their criminal conspiracy against them. Someone who understood that real authority comes from law and justice, not fear and fake badges. The last Tom heard, Webb was working in the prison laundry, earning 23 cents an hour. It seemed fitting. The man who'd tried to steal hundreds of thousands through fake authority now made about $4 a day through honest work. Justice, Tom reflected, had a sense of humor after all. Sometimes the best revenge was simply letting the truth do its work. And sometimes, criminals were stupid enough to commit their crimes against exactly the wrong person. Webb had forgotten to research his target. That oversight cost him 47 years of freedom. Tom never forgot that lesson even in retirement. Know who you're dealing with before you make your move. Because sometimes, that harmless-looking rancher feeding his horses might just be someone who sent hundreds of criminals to prison. And sometimes, justice wears cowboy boots.